Today, as we're speaking, it's the 15th of September 2016, and on the 15th of September 1960 was the first day that tanks went into battle on the Western Front. So today is the centenary of the first use of tanks, and the way we felt was best to mark that was to replicate something that was done in the First World War. So in Britain in the First World War, the place where tanks were shown off to the British people was Trafalgar Square. And during the First World War, tanks were put on Trafalgar Square actually as a part of a fundraising measure to encourage people to engage in the war effort. And enormous crowds gathered in Trafalgar Square to see the superstar of the British Army. And the tank was the most famous thing. It was the thing that the British had which the Germans didn't. So Trafalgar Square was used in the First World War, and we thought we could do that again. So this morning we put a replica Mark IV First World War tank on Trafalgar Square for the British public to see again. The tank was introduced at the second half of the Battle of the Somme, and the Battle of the Somme is a scar that still runs deep in the British nation. On the first day of the Battle of the Somme, 60,000 British soldiers were killed or wounded, and the numbers of people who lost family members or who had family members who were injured was just astonishingly huge. And by the time you're getting into the midst of the Battle of the Somme, the nation is feeling heavy with grief and with war weariness. But the war still isn't finished. The war is still going in full flow. We hadn't broken the German army. The German army was still in France and still in Belgium. And when the new offensive began in September 1916, the introduction of brand new technology, of something that was unique, that had never been seen on the battlefield before, and particularly something that the British had that the Germans didn't, brought new hope that there could be victory, and this might be the way it happens. And the tank was a central feature of the most watched movie in British history at the beginning of 1917. And the tank was presented to the public as this shows that we can do it. Mark V was in the summer of 1918, but the Tank Museum, we've got a Mark IX, which was in November 1918. The speed at which the technology was evolving was breathtaking. And the best way to think about it is mobile technology in the 21st century. Stuff that's 2 years old is seen as obsolete. But the tanks, it was probably even faster than that. You've got Mark I in September 16, Mark II in April 17, so that's 6 months. You've got Mark IV in July 17, and then the Mark V in the summer of 18. So these guys, and each model makes the previous one obsolete. These guys are moving at a breathtaking speed of technology development. Well, effectively, they're learning as they go along. So they're learning through trial and error, and they're getting a lot of feedback from the guys using the things of what they need. And that's feeding back incredibly quickly to the design teams, who are then bringing that together in a new design that goes to the front. Then they find what the problems are with that, so there's a tremendously effective feedback loop. And they were solving a very specific problem. And so the problem they're trying to solve is they had to get over trenches. And if you have a rectangular shaped or box-shaped tank, as it goes over a trench, it goes nose first into the trench because the centre of gravity reaches the tipping point before the other side of the tank is on the far side of the trench. So what they did was they took the same box and they made it longer at the front and longer at the back, so that by the time the front of the tank was over the top of the trench on the other side, the front of the tank got over the top of the trench on the other side before the central gravity made the tank tip into the trench. It was an incredibly simple but absolutely brilliant piece of innovation. But it was a specific problem, and after the First World War, those sorts of entrenchments don't exist anymore. So you don't need that anymore. And actually, Little Willie, the very first tank, looks more like a modern tank than the one that was actually used in the First World War.